I'm Pete Tong, and I play records and do a few other things as well. I mean, me and the other partners, we all have lived and spent an awful lot of time in Ibiza and got so much out of Ibiza. We all felt that Ibiza was still such a huge catalyst and influence on the whole story of electronic music around the world. It still was such a creative place for DJs really finding themselves and making their reputations. But often, you know, when you go to America or you go to different places around the world, people's perception of Ibiza who haven't been here is it's just a party place and it's full of crazy people. So we had a desire to do, there was the conferences in America, there was conferences in the UK, there was conferences in Holland, and we felt Ibiza really deserved a conference because why wouldn't it? Nowhere influences electronic music more than Ibiza, so why shouldn't there be a conference in Ibiza? So, and we thought the end of May was a really good time, just as like to set the agenda for the year, the start of the season. It was far enough away after Miami. It was far enough before ADE. So we had this desire to do it, but we were talking about it for 2 or 3 years. I mean, this was when I was first at Pacha. And we kind of irritated ourselves with the notion that we kept talking about it, but we were telling people it was going to happen, but we weren't doing it because we were waiting for a sponsor to come along and pay for it all. So we sat down in the March of 2008 at the Winter Music Conference, and we all sat around a table, looked at each other, and we said, like, this is bullshit. It's now or never. We're never going to find our dream sponsor. So if we're going to do this, let's pay for it ourselves. So we all put in our kind of stake, and we literally left Miami, and we had under 2 months to arrange it, and we just went like crazy to sort it all out. And it was launched in the end of May 2008, and now here we are 5 years on. We haven't really looked back, and funny enough, as soon as we decided to do it and we announced we were doing it and we booked the hotel and set the place and ran the ads, then the sponsors started coming. Definitely feels like my natural home. I was talking to Danny Tanaglia yesterday about he was always a DJ who I thought was a tourist attraction. He got a bit pissed off travelling around the world, but he was a real resident, and I love the idea of residencies, and I think Pacha's always been my kind of spiritual home. So coming back there last year and grabbing hold of Fridays again, and we changed the name of it to Gone Pete Tong. And yeah, it's been fantastic going back. So this year, last year when I moved back there, we only had like 4 or 5 months to get the whole season together, and the clubs are so competitive. But we did a good job. But this year I've had the whole year to do it, so I'm really, really happy with the lineups. 19 weeks. It starts on Friday. It's musically, it's a journey, a little bit like my radio show, in the sense that it leans towards the underground, but it's got some big moments at certain times of the season that we think is really appropriate. I think radio is really, really important. I think give people infinite choice, which is kind of what's happening in the way our kind of electronic digital life has evolved, and especially in the last 5 years, 10 years. Give people infinite choice. They love the freedom, and they love the freedom, but actually it's overwhelming for probably 95% of the people, and people want guidance and they want signposts, and I think radio is a big factor in that, and I still think in its simplest form radio is still such a beautiful thing. The communication with the audience, it's an intimate medium, and it still has a lot of power, so I still get really excited about doing it. I still feel that you pick the right records on the right night, and it can set people off, and it starts. It's like starting an avalanche. It might not have the monumental explosive effects, say, it had going on the radio in 1994 or 5, and I could play a record and you'd almost feel like you could break it on one play because everybody was listening. There was not so many distractions, there wasn't so many radio shows, and there was no internet. So I think what it's more like a avalanche thing now. You know, of like you can move something and things start snowballing from there. I mean, what the joy of the BBC, and it's still. I do a lot of research on this and travel all around the world and listen to what everyone else is doing, and there's still no station on the planet like Radio 1. So it's still a national treasure. The listen again function alone now for specialists, all the specialist shows is so valuable. So, you know, we still get a lot of people. I think it's like, I don't know, between 1 and 2 million listening on a Friday night. But the listen again numbers are huge as well. The influence that that has is fantastic. So I'm happy, and I'm always one, a bit like James Barton said, just to tend to look forward, not back. You know, I suppose that's the key answer to why I'm still doing what I'm doing for so long. Because if everything was still the same as it was, I wouldn't be doing it. It would be boring. You know, what would seem to be amazing would become quickly boring. So it's the journey. It's the way things change, and you know, and just living through it and dealing with it and trying to enjoy it as well. So I don't think, you know, I wouldn't say, you know, it was better back then. It's always you always live in the moment. You know, every few years you get a complete kind of generational kind of turnover of, you know, your audience grow up, have kids and stop going out or whatever, or interact with the music in a different way. And to the new people coming in, growing up and growing into it for the first time, their journey into it has been different to yours, and everyone's thing is totally unique, and their sense of history will be different. You know, their sense of the past and how important it was for them will be different, because some of them don't care. You know, especially in America now, we're seeing it's like a year zero again of kids are coming into it because they heard, you know, the Swedish House Mafia for the first time on the radio. They know nothing about Frankie Knuckles or the history of house music, and why should they? And if they want to find out about it, it's great, it's there, and if they don't, there's nothing you can do about it. And why, you know, as I said, why should they? It's like, so things change.
But all positive.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, I wrote in Music Week a few weeks ago about the need to just be. I think people need to be smart. You know, there is a lot of new opportunities out there, and some of them, you know, you just got to be smart with the opportunities, because you know it won't all work. And I do think that, yeah, I do have this thing about, you know, still having a place where you nurture the underground, you know, as the money gets bigger, as the pressure gets bigger to kind of constantly satisfy and deliver, the kind of commercial end of it can kind of run itself into up a blind alley almost, you know. So I think it's really important that the underground stuff, because that's where tomorrow. When I say underground, I don't just mean, you know, Jamie Jones. I mean it's as much for Porter Robinson, you know, being able to start somewhere, you know. But I think it's interesting what we're seeing now, that people are almost leapfrogging the process, you know, making a record at home, sticking it on YouTube, and they can almost be booked into a massive event straight away, and they don't have to do their internship, you know, for like learning how to DJ. I mean, so many people I've interviewed in the last few years, you know, they made music first and they're learning to DJ and they're already famous, you know. So I don't know what the effect of all that is going to be, but that's life.